Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcast. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
You're listening to Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It's Thursday, April 12th, 2018. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. We have got a lot of stuff to talk about today. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Mike is in our control room, twiddling the dials, keeping us out of trouble, ready to answer the phone when you call on in. Reminder that the lovely Lady Claire, her back is actually starting to get better. She will be joining us in hour number 3 of our program tomorrow. And basically on April 23rd, Dan McGowan will be our guest to talk about, well, all kinds of different topics and subjects. So we'll get into that a little bit later on here. Today is the anniversary of the flight of Yuri Gagarin, the first man to enter outer space, all the way back there. It does seem like so long ago. And so the U.S. and Russia were, in Soviet Union rather, were locked in a space race. And Russia got there first, and spurred on by John F. Kennedy, the U.S. was playing catch-up and eventually pulled ahead to land the first man on the moon. And please don't call in saying the Apollo landings are fake, because I don't have time to deal with that nonsense here today. Let's talk about what's going on in Syria, because all of a sudden the rhetoric coming out of the White House seems to be softening, maybe, kinda. And I'm having trouble figuring out exactly what's going on. But over at the Daily Mail in Great Britain, they had this story. Did Trump jump the gun with Twitter threats of strikes on Syria? President meets the top military brass and national security advisor as the White House tries to downplay threat to launch missiles. And we're trying to figure out what's going on. Did they finally realize that nobody was buying this nonsensical story about the gas attack? Well, apparently not, because early today on Fox News, Donald Trump was out there saying that he's highly confident that the Syrian government was responsible for the gas attack. So they're still doubling down on that lie. But on the other hand, Donald Trump is coming on out and saying that he didn't say when an attack on Syria would take place. It could be soon, may not be so soon at all. Now, maybe he's just trying to psych out the Syrian forces and Russia, and it would be nice to think that Trump is trying to back down and back off of this. I'm sure the overnight polls are showing the American people are not on board with this, but we know from his previous reversal about leaving Syria, he's not really in control. And I'm sure that already Netanyahu's on the phone saying, attack Syria now, attack Syria now. John Bolton is saying, attack Syria now, attack Syria now. The Pentagon is saying, we got to go for it, we got to go for it. But again, a lot of people are still criticizing the fact that the U.S. government is threatening to bomb Syria without any investigation into the alleged chemical attack, whether it actually happened, let alone who actually did it. Mattis is saying they still don't really know. The UN says they can't find out. The only people on the ground in the area right now are the Russian chemical weapons experts. They're saying they can't find any evidence that it happened at all. There are no dead bodies. Nobody at the hospital said any patients came on in. So to the rescue comes French President Macron, who says he has proof that Assad launched a horrifying gas attack in Syria that killed at least 40 people. And he's saying it could have probably been chlorine gas, and he's got the proof. Can't show it to you, of course. Would betray methods and sources. Can't show you the proof. Just take my word for it. I'm the president of France. I would not lie to you. I think trust in politicians is definitely on the wane here. Mattis is out there saying that we're still assessing, and they're trying to cool things down a little bit, whether that means the attack is called off or they're going to delay it until the Harry S. Truman arrives, probably the latter. It's kind of hard to figure out what's going on. Russia insists that the U.S. trained rebels for chemical attacks, and certainly as the Syrian government forces have marched across Syria, every time they take over one of the bases for the U.S.-backed rebels, they're finding all these chemical weapons precursors from Western companies, from Saudi Arabia, weapons from Israel. Everybody's in there tinkering around with the country. Now, over at Washington's blog, they have located a video showing school children rehearsing a sarin chemical attack. This is not a drill where they go for gas masks and hide under their desks like the old duck and cover. I mean, these are kids who, on a signal, are just dropping to the ground and writhing around. They're literally rehearsing these kids to fake a sarin chemical attack. And it tells you that, yes, this is all faked. It's all theater to push this. Now, satellite imagery has confirmed that Russia has sailed its ships from the port of Tarsus, a total of 6 ships, including 2 diesel-electric submarines and 2 combat boats. And they seem to have sailed on out, supposedly to conduct military exercises. In all probability, they're being dispersed ahead of a possible U.S. attack. And, of course, they're going into position to be able to interdict any U.S. forces that are coming on in. We're going to do a shout-out to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network here. Now, Sweden has offered a new idea. They're up there at the UN Security Council with a draft resolution. Basically says the Security Council should establish a new, impartial, independent, and professional investigative body to determine responsibility for the use of chemical weapons in Syria. And it would ask Secretary General Antonio Guterres to submit proposals to the Council within the next 10 days. Now, as you know, the United States and Russia have been going back and forth over 2 competing draft proposals for an investigation. The U.S. proposal is that they will send in a group of investigators who will come to their own conclusions about who was responsible. And the Russian proposal says they're going to send in investigators who will come back to the Security Council to report the facts they found, and the Security Council will determine who might be to blame. And each nation is vetoing the other's resolution. Now, here's where it gets kind of interesting. As you know, Bashar al-Assad has invited the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons to go to Duma to carry out an investigation. They've opened up a safe passage corridor. They're guaranteeing their safety. And seems like a really good idea to do. Here's where it gets a little weird. The U.S. government is saying that, yes, the OPCW mission to Duma is nice, but it doesn't matter what they find. It will not affect the U.S. decision on a response to Syria. So you can hear what they're saying here. They're saying even if the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons gets to Duma and they find exactly what the Russian chemical weapons experts found, which is nothing, it's not going to change the decision to attack Syria. Now, Ed Schultz is out there saying that sending U.S. missiles into Syria without proof of the government being behind the chemical attack, if it did happen, it is a fool's errand. And yes, it is. It is a crime. It is a naked aggression. It's a sin. And everybody knows that's exactly what's going on. And you need to remember, whatever the U.S. intervention in Syria is going to be, it's going to kill a lot more children than this alleged chemical attack. The U.S. bombing of Syria has killed lots more children, lots more civilians than the claimed chemical attacks. So it's a question of proportion. Oh, they killed 40 children. Well, we're going to go in and blow up about 2,000 or 3,000 kids in response. You need to remember just how long the U.S. has been at war with Syria, with indiscriminate drone strikes that kill innocent civilians, thousands of troops on the ground. Much of the war is being waged out of sight of the American public thanks to the U.S. corporate media. Now, Theresa May, who earlier on, only a couple of days ago, was saying, we need to see more evidence. Well, apparently somebody called her up, twisted her arm. She's called a cabinet meeting to basically discuss Britain's response in Syria to this gas attack. She's saying, it's time to go. We're not going to bother with Parliament. We're just going to end run them. We're sending in the bombers here, the cruise missiles. And all I can say is, here's your rifle, Teresa. And that's got to be our attitude for all these war hawks. If you think a war with Syria is necessary, you go fight it. You spend your own money, you take your own gun, you take your own children, go on in there and do what you think is necessary. But you leave the rest of us alone, because we know this is all a big steaming pile of USDA choice bovine excrement. And we're not going along with it anymore. Now, we reported earlier in the week that Syrian troops and Russian troops have captured British forces in Douma. The British government is denying that it happened. At some point, I'm sure that photographs are going to show up online. But I can imagine what those British troops are going through. They were ordered into Douma. Maybe they're the ones who staged this chemical attack, if indeed it happened at all. They got caught, and now the British government is just writing them off. Remember the old Mission Impossible series? The secretary will disavow your, any knowledge of your activities. You're on your own. Now, Gavin Williamson, the Tory Defense Secretary, is out there. He's doing his Tony Blair impression, screaming that Russia wants to cause thousands and thousands and thousands of deaths in Britain. And he's going to do it by attacking critical energy supplies to Great Britain. And he says that basically Russian spies keep photographing and looking at power stations and have an interest in gas pipelines and interconnectors that transport electricity. This is all in the Daily Telegraph. Remember when phony Tony Blair claimed Iraq could launch biological weapons at Great Britain with just 45 minutes warning? This is more of the same. They're just trying to crank up fear of Russia. And it's all lies. Russia is not going to attack us. Russia doesn't want a war. China doesn't want a war. Iran doesn't want a war. North Korea doesn't want a war. None of these countries want a war. The United States is the aggressor, and it has nations that are unable to refuse to go along with it, like France and Great Britain. Yet another piece of war rhetoric is out there saying that Russia's going to go after our satellites. If you want your MTV, we got to go make war on Russia now before they shoot that satellite down. The Russian Air Force and Navy are still on alert. They're prepared to respond to possible U.S. strikes. And they're moving a lot of assets around. And apparently Russia's Humanim Air Base in Latakia is also equipped with the anti-ship cruise missiles of the KH-35 type, and those are to be feared. Now here's the wild card coming on in. There are Chinese Navy ships in the Mediterranean Ocean. They have received orders to join the Russian Navy in the case of a U.S. attack on Syria. There's the wild card coming on in. And maybe that's the reason why the rhetoric coming out of the White House has softened a little bit. The Warhawks may have said, well, I'm pretty sure we can take on Russia. Now all of a sudden it's Russia and China. And all Chinese warships that are in the Mediterranean are already on the way to the Syrian port at Tartus. So China is getting involved. Chinese troops are already on the ground in Syria to fight thousands of what are called the Uyghur militants, whether in ISIS or the Chinese Al-Qaeda. And if you're like me, you probably didn't even realize there was a Chinese Al-Qaeda. And apparently jihadists launched an attack on the Chinese embassy in Kyrgyzstan in 2016. And Beijing fears they plan on further attacking China's territory and its citizens and assets abroad. Yeah, because that's what the U.S. does. They send in ISIS and Al-Qaeda to cause disruption and confusion. Then, if the government fails to collapse, they go on in with a full military invasion, which is what's getting ready to happen here in Syria. Now, I hate to say I told you so, but no, actually, I really do enjoy it. I enjoy pouring salt in the wound here. Apparently, Russia is talking about reopening the old Soviet military base near Havana, Cuba. Now, this base was opened in 1962 in response to the American ballistic missile deployments in Italy and Turkey. And this is what sparked the Cuban Missile Crisis. Most people, they think the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Soviets just put missile in Cuba, Kennedy backed them down, that was the end of the story. No, the Soviet Union put those missiles in Cuba in response to the U.S. putting offensive nuclear-tipped ballistic missiles on the border with Russia, with the Soviet Union. And that's what really led to this. Okay, there we are. So when Trump reversed Obama's normalization of relations with Cuba, I warned this was going to happen. One of the few things I agreed with Obama about was normalizing relations with Cuba, and not just because I like Cuban rum and Cuban cigars, but because it would keep Cuba out of the hands of Russia in the event that tensions escalated. And the old guard, we know how to keep a grudge for 50 years, people over at the CIA, scotched that whole idea, went back to sneering at Cuba, and all of a sudden, Russia now has a foothold on our side of the world. Bad idea. Now, something for those of you living in New York or Washington, D.C. There is no nuclear missile shield around your cities. There is around Moscow. Now, the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty was basically designed to say, we want to avoid getting into this costly race of building more and more anti-ballistic missiles, which would trigger building more ballistic missiles to get around the ABMs, which would trigger building more ABMs, and so forth and so on. So the ABM treaty limited how many anti-ballistic missiles each side could have. And they were allowed a single ABM site with up to 100 missiles. Now, Russia put their site around Moscow, the seat of their government, heavy population center. They have a ring of 100 of the S-400 missiles guarding the city of Moscow. The United States put their 100 missiles around the Grand Forks Air Force Base in North Dakota to protect the nuclear weapons from surprise attack. So it tells you where the priorities of the government are. Because after all, if war is pending, the leaders of the government aren't going to beat there. The president's going to go off to Mount Weather. Congress is going to go off to the Greenbrier. The Supreme Court judges are going to go down to this resort in North Carolina. And everybody else who's left behind in Washington, D.C., you're on your own. Thank you. Good night. Yet another member of Congress, and this is one of President Trump's biggest supporters, Thomas Massie, Republican of Kentucky, basically took to Twitter to say it doesn't make any sense Assad would use gas, and it never did. It's this ridiculous idea. Assad is winning. Everybody's getting used to that idea. He didn't have a need to use gas, certainly not on a hospital full of children. Very obviously, that target was picked to maximize the emotional and shock value. It's got absolutely no military advantage. And Assad may be many things. He's not stupid. He's winning. He's not going to do the one thing that would allow the U.S. to come on in and re-invade the country, which is what appears to be on the verge of happening. And now, of course, we have the White House saying it doesn't matter if the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons doesn't find any evidence the gas attack happened or that Assad was behind it. We know in our heart of hearts that's what happened. We looked into Miss Cleo's crystal ball and we saw it all there, gazing into the Palantir. And yes, Sauron told us it was so, and it must be true. Sarah Palin is out there. Now, I know I've been very rough on Sarah Palin for good reason, but she actually came out and said something I think we pretty much all agree on. Why should we sacrifice even one of our sons or daughters? And she was on the Sirius XM radio with Rebecca Mansour for Breitbart News. And she said, it really makes me nervous that there seems to be some enthusiasm for the U.S. to interject ourselves again in a foreign country's battles when no one has articulated yet what our interest is there. We should have learned our lesson with Iraq and Afghanistan. I look at it as blood, sweat, the toil that has been spent on our end when you really can't see what the gain is in a lot of respects. We just can't allow ourselves to get back in that mood with Syria. We'll be back after these commercials.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
As a listener of RBN, you're surely concerned about being informed and being ready for whatever may come. Please consider the following questionnaire as a soul-jarring wake-up call. If you answer no to more than 2 of these following questions, you probably aren't going to make it through any major disruption in our country. The questions were compiled by people that have been there. Are you really ready? Do you own your own firearm for the primary defense and protection of you and your loved ones? Have you ever been professionally trained to stand against life-threatening behavior? Have you ever practiced enough to fire 500 rounds during a 2 to 4 day time frame, day and night? Can you load, unload, fire, and clear a jam in total darkness? Have all the adults in your household been professionally trained? Are you, life and death, comfortable with your abilities with pistol, revolver, shotgun, and rifle? Are you aware that everything that you do to prepare for an emergency is a waste of time, money, and energy? If you haven't honed your abilities to their highest level to protect and keep what you have, do you have the repair parts that will most likely be needed for each of your firearm, and do you have the ability to install those parts? Could you completely clean every firearm you own? Are you aware that your body won't go where your mind hasn't been? In other words, without proper training, followed by regular practice, you probably will not win a gunfight. Well, how did you measure up? Take the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to start correcting your deficiencies by receiving your Commander Lifetime Membership with Front Sight Firearms Training Facility. A one-time donation to RBN for $500 will give you a Commander Lifetime Membership at Front Sight as a tremendously huge thank you bonus. See details on RBN's webpage to make it happen. The clock is ticking. You had better be ready before it happens.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Join Mike on the air. Call toll-free 800-313-9443. 800-313-9443.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. We're talking about Sarah Palin, who came on out and said something I actually agree with. There's a historic first right there. But she made a point of saying, we just can't see what the gain is. Well, she's thinking in terms of gain for the nation as a whole and for the American people, and of course there is none. These wars are all fought for very narrow special interest: oil pipeline right of way, more money into the military-industrial complex, and these kind of gains are intentionally hidden from the American people, specifically because the American people are not willing to sacrifice their sons and daughters for some corporation's bottom line here. All right, we're going to go to the phones here. Dustin in New Jersey, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike, did you hear anything about Erdogan having separate phone calls with Trump and Putin?
No, I didn't, but I'd be hardly be surprised. I imagine they're all burning up the phone lines between all these various capitals.
Yeah, well, it didn't go so well because nothing was accomplished. So I don't understand what's up with Trump now. Where's all the Trump supporters now calling in? You know, like the guy did more flip flops than Kerry. You know, I mean, I don't know, Mike.
Well, what we're seeing here is an executive branch that is at war with itself. We know from a week ago that Trump wants to get out of Syria. He thinks it's a bad idea. And then he was put under pressure by Netanyahu, by his own cabinet, by the Pentagon to say, no, we have to go in there. And very conveniently, this gas attack story came on out to give the U.S. government a reason to go on in there, guns blazing. But a lot of people are wondering what's going on with Trump. He doesn't seem to be enthusiastic about this. In fact, over at Russia Insider, they're running a story that Trump is blinking on Syria. Russian ability to hit back is too risky for him. That may be true, but I think it was very reckless of Russia Insider to put out that headline because that will be seized on by people like John Bolton and shown to Trump saying, see, they think you're weak. And right now, anything they can say to get Trump to move forward on this, they're going to be saying anything that they do. In fact, there may be another false flag in the immediate offing to get this going because the war machine and the war agenda, they can't quit now. If they lose in Syria, the wheels come off the war wagon and it's all over. The U.S. will have lost World War III. And so right now, I imagine things are very tense inside the White House.
Did you hear about CNBC ran a story about 8 targets being picked out? And then, Mike, I also read that a U.S. unnamed official says they have urine and blood samples. I'm like, right there, that's bogus. How'd they get that so quick? You know, it's like, would they pull it out of the freezer? I mean, come on.
That's what they
now.
did. That's what they did. They couldn't possibly get those samples out of there. And again, we have the doctors in the hospital saying that nobody came on in with symptoms of chemical poisoning. The Russian chemical weapons experts are on the ground there. The U.S. couldn't possibly get in there to get samples. Again, they're raising on a busted flush here.
And Mike, you mentioned real quick, I just want to finish up the KH-35, the land-based ones. Yeah, if they have 2 to 4 batteries, that's 8 anti-ship, the KH-35 anti-ship missiles per battery. So if they have 4 of those, that's 32 anti-ship missiles. That's a lot of firepower, man.
That is a lot of firepower. And, I mean, 2 of those KH-35s per ship, one of them's going to get through.
And the planes carry 1 per wing. So you figure, and plus they have backup. So, yeah, man, that's a lot of ships going down. Like, they'll sink the 6th Fleet. They're actually, I think, a week and a half away. Maybe, about almost 2 weeks, slightly a little less. But, I mean,
you're talking about the Harry S. Truman. No, they're slightly less than a week away. They're limited by their slowest escorts. They left Norfolk a few days ago, so they'll be in the Eastern Mediterranean this time next week. Now, I got an email from a mother whose son is on the Truman, and she says that it is a training rotation that was announced months ago. But as I wrote back to her, a training mission can become an active mission on a single command from higher authority.
And then, Mike, did you mention Angela Merkel says they're not gonna be involved in Italy too? So but Ramstein will still get hit if it all goes hot. So I don't. She's not getting involved in this one. But Theresa May, she looks crazy too. I don't know. They're all crazy, Mike. I mean,
they are. They're absolutely crazy. Those who are going along with this thing, they have to. First of all, they're all smart enough to understand. The story about the gas attack is complete bovine excrement. What is really insulting is they seem to be operating under the belief that the general public is falling for all of this. And that is a really, really big mistake. They're obviously seriously out of touch with the sentiment of the general population. And that's always really a dangerous situation. Again, Theresa May was trying to be the voice of caution. Somebody got to her. Somebody called up and said, you will do this, and she's going along with it. Anyway, Dustin, I got to let you go. We got to take another break for commercials. We'll be back with another phone call after these few words.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, the number 2, keep it today.
Do you know there is an ongoing war right here in America? Are you aware that U.S. citizens have been classified as enemies of the state since 1933? Have you recognized that our entire government is really a vast network of interlocking corporations engaged in commerce? Look up Title 28, Section 3002. Tune in to In Defense of Humanity on Saturday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time. Find out what's really going on and learn how to protect yourself and your family as flesh and blood men and women living in a corporate reality.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus magful clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AirOutfitting.com.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. We're going to go right back to the telephones. Kathleen in Paris, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Michael. Today I was thinking about the situation and how sometimes, you can be damned if you do and damned if you don't. And I was thinking that Trump can see clearly, I think, that on one hand he could get the JFK treatment if he didn't go along with the deep state. And on the other hand, what if he is goaded into doing something which in fact breaks international law? Wouldn't it be against international law for him to just haul off and attack?
Yes, there's no question about that, and it's hardly confined to Trump. All of the presidents who've been overseeing these regime changes and incursions into these other countries, they're all in violation of international law. War is a crime. People talk about war crimes as if there's a legal way to have a war, but war itself is a crime because it embodies all other crimes within it.
So GOP could impeach him for breaking international law.
There's already been talk that if Trump goes into Syria, that would be an impeachable offense because he's doing it without the authorization of Congress, and he's doing it without a UN Security Council resolution.
So do you see my damned if he does and damned if he doesn't?
Well, yeah. I mean, certainly the insiders want Trump out without any question. I don't know if he's been threatened with the Kennedy treatment or not, but like I said, I find the timing of that fire in the Trump Tower a little too convenient. And I think somebody was sending a message saying you get back on board with the war agenda or something really bad going to happen to all, that's a nice building. Be ashamed if something happened to it.
Yeah. Well, I just hadn't thought about the fact that they could impeach him for doing what he's coerced to do.
Yeah, it's a very awkward place, but he wanted the job, and now he's got it. And again, when he first took office, my concern was that he really did not have a grasp on just how dirty Washington, D.C. politics can get.
I stand guilty of still hoping that he's, plotting peace with the other world leaders, and this is his ace up his sleeve.
Well, unfortunately, I'm not. We're more than a year into his first term in office, maybe his only term in office, and he's a disappointment. Yes, he's working on the immigration issue, but Hillary is still not in jail. He doesn't seem to be doing anything about vaccine safety. He doesn't seem to be doing anything about improving our elections. At the very least, he should be out there lobbying for a nationwide voter ID law. We're still admired in all of these wars and getting ready to start new ones. So yeah, he's a disappointment. And I think the lesson for the American people is it almost really doesn't matter anymore who the president and members of Congress are. They're not in charge. The bureaucracy is, the Pentagon is, the intelligence agencies are, and certainly Israel above all of those.
Okay. Thank you, Michael.
All right. Thanks an awful lot, Kathleen. We're going to let you go. The phone lines are now open. Now, a little reminder, when we talk about all the evidence that is starting to accumulate that, yes, these gas attacks being blamed on Assad are all false flags. Back in 2013, Qatari intelligence tried to hire a British mercenary contractor company to smuggle chemical weapons to the U.S.-backed rebels in Syria to stage a chemical weapons attack to be used to justify Western military intervention. This is a story that we reported back in 2013, and it was worth remembering yet again. Now, over in eastern Ghouta, the terrorists are surrendering, and they're taking advantage of Assad's amnesty program. They're surrendering their weapons, they're taking their families, and they're leaving. And the weapons that they're turning over are modern arms made in Israel and Europe. That's who's been supplying weapons and supplies along with the United States of America. This so-called Syrian color revolution was not an organic revolution. It was a regime change from outside, by outside actors. Now, getting on down to Israel, Israel is still trying to repair its public image following the Passover massacre. And of course, they're reminding everybody that it's Holocaust Commemoration Day. Remember the Holocaust. You know, we're the victims here. And the Israeli media is still trying to come on out and say that these Palestinians who were wounded and killed did so amidst a clash with Israeli border forces. But fairness and accuracy in reporting has come on out to remind us all that snipers shooting at unarmed people from 100 meters away isn't a clash. Israel is still out there trying to deal with that video that came on out, where one of the snipers shot a video through his scope showing him shooting a Palestinian who was just standing there doing nothing. And they're all laughing and cheering and clapping about it. They think it's wonderful. Israeli civilians are down there on the hills overlooking the border with their lounge chairs and their coolers. They think it's great fun to see these people get killed. Now, Netanyahu is out there again trying to polish the image of what is described as the world's most moral army, and he says the Israeli snipers are doing holy work, which I assume means shooting holes in innocent Palestinians, but he may have another idea entirely. Yesterday, we reported on how Israeli forces targeted a girls' school with tear gas. Today, they've done it to a boys' school in Nahalin town to the west of Bethlehem. Apparently, the town's deputy mayor, Hani Fanan, said that Israeli forces raided the town, particularly the school area, and surrounded Nahalin Secondary Boys' School. The soldiers fired a barrage of tear gas canisters at the school, causing panic among the students and a number of suffocation cases. Residents attempted to take the children from the school. The soldiers prevented it. They just left the kids in there with all the tear gas. Again, the world's most moral army. And I don't know what Netanyahu's trying to do. Maybe he's trying to provoke a new intifada, which would justify bombing Gaza again. Would certainly distract the Israeli media from his corruption problems. Now let's talk about military readiness, because it's become a serious question in the last few days. Is the United States really ready to take on a military peer? Now, the U.S. looks really butch against these little tiny countries with no real ability to defend themselves, and the U.S. will go on in and bomb them into rubble. Although we're still stuck in Afghanistan, we're still stuck in Iraq, and we certainly have not managed to be very, very successful in Syria after 7 years. We've been talking about the deficiencies in America's modern weapons, like the Littoral class combat ships, the F-22, the F-35, the Zumwalt stealth destroyer, the Gerald R. Ford, and so forth and so on. And we've also been talking about, are there really enough qualified people entering the military? And we know that the Navy and the Army have been forced to lower their requirements for enlistment just to fill ranks. And they're taking in people with mental health issues. They're taking in people who are seriously overweight and out of shape. And now it turns out that apparently there is a major shortage of fighter pilots in the Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps of about 25%. That means 1 out of every 4 cockpits is effectively empty. 1 out of every 4 billets, actually. I'm sure they're sharing airplanes. And this is a serious problem because it takes about 5 years of training at a cost of anywhere from $3 to $11 million to make a qualified fighter pilot. And I'm sure the U.S. military is saying, well, that's okay. We're going to win the war with the drones. We're going to win the war with the wonder weapons. That was the Nazis' strategic failure. Toward the end of World War II, when they were losing the conventional war, instead of reinforcing their troops and resupplying them, the money was all diverted to the V-1 Buzz bomb, world's first cruise missile, the V-2 ballistic missile, the world's first ballistic missile, the first human object to leave the Earth's atmosphere. And they were amazing to see in action, unless you were on the receiving end, but they couldn't be produced in enough volume to actually materially change the outcome of the war. Now, as you know, on the Gerald R. Ford, one of the issues that it is dealing with is the electromagnetic catapult system. And it was decided to go with this electromagnetic system in order to save the room normally taken up by the much larger steam catapult system, which tends to hang below the flight deck down into the hangar deck. And it really takes up a lot of room, so they went with this electromagnetic railgun, and it's developed problems. Apparently, that initial pulse is so great, it's actually cracking the tow bar, the tow hook, and the landing gear on the Navy aircraft. The Gerald R. Ford is now out at sea trials, and they basically ran 4 days of continuous ops simulating an ongoing major naval battle. And they discovered those electromagnetic catapults break down very, very quickly. They're not reliable. They're not dependable. China has announced they've achieved a breakthrough on their electromagnetic launch system for the aircraft carrier. And basically they're saying they've made it so efficient, it doesn't even require a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier to operate. A conventionally powered petroleum-fueled aircraft carrier can operate this system. And apparently it works on DC, whereas other systems have been working on AC. And they're saying it works really, really well. Now, the U.S. has been in negotiations with India to transfer technology to allow India to build a nuclear aircraft carrier, the INS Vishal. Russia has come on down and just offered to sell them a complete nuclear-powered aircraft carrier known as the Storm, or Project 23000E. Russia is building aircraft carriers for export. I think India will probably go that direction, especially looking at how the latest U.S. technology for aircraft carriers isn't working out so well on the Gerald R. Ford. And yet more troubles for the much beleaguered F-35. The Pentagon has halted all deliveries on the F-35 from the manufacturer Lockheed Martin. Apparently, it turns out there's been another manufacturing defect discovered that was not dealt with at the time it was discovered. And it's now basically it's out on 200 of the jets spread all around the world. Excuse me. And it turns out it has to do with anti-corrosion protection that was not properly applied on some of the aluminum, and it is near a source of heat, energy, and chemicals that are leading to corrosion, and corrosion of a particular structural element could lead to catastrophic failure. So somebody has to go out to all these 200 jets and repair them all over the world. It's going to be very costly, and you would say that this is obviously the fault of Lockheed Martin, except Lockheed Martin is saying, well, the government's inspectors should have discovered this before accepting the airplanes. So they're arguing back and forth over who's going to pay for it, and until Lockheed Martin agrees to pay for it, the Pentagon is halting all F-35 deliveries. Now, right now, these F-35s are costing anywhere between $90 and $122 million per aircraft based on the particular configuration. Air Force, Navy, Marines. And they're promising that once they go into regular production, economies of scale will kick in, and they'll all be just under $100 million per aircraft. That's a bargain, such a bargain, really, $100 million per aircraft. It sort of reminds me of Eisenhower's Cross of Iron speech, where he says, what is the cost of one battleship? And he says, it's all these schools, it's all these hospitals, it's all these power stations that could be built with the same money. So just look around your community right now and just imagine what $100 million injected into your local economy might do. Certainly it's going to fix the roads, going to fix the infrastructure, going to stimulate new businesses, stimulate new jobs. I mean, here in Hawaii, we've got the worst roads in the nation. And with Claire with her back, as careful as I drive around our neighborhood, between all the potholes and the ruts and everything, she's having a really rough time. And every once in a while, the road crew will come on out and they'll patch it over, and the next rainstorm, it falls in again. $100 million put into our road system on this island would be a real blessing. Now, over at combatreform.org, there was a very lengthy article with a very long title, Battleship Interdiction of Rogue Nation States and Subnational Terrorists, Hard Armored Mobility and Deep Precision Strike at Sea Needed. And it's a very long-winded discourse. It's obviously written for internal military consumption. But in short, this expert is arguing that the Iowa-class battleships that are now loaned to various museums be put back in active service. One time, as part of a charity thing, Claire and I got the extended behind-the-scenes tour of the Missouri down here in Pearl Harbor. And the tour guide was saying that technically the Missouri is still the property of the United States Navy. It is on loan to the Pearl Harbor Museum. But in point of fact, it could be refitted and put back out to sea. Not as easily as in the movie Battleship, but yes, it is entirely possible. They could start manufacturing those 16-inch shells again. The existing inventory of those shells was destroyed following the incident on the Iowa, but they could start making them again. So this guy is out there saying, our aircraft carriers are vulnerable. We need the battleship to come on back. So we're going to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slows circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
This is too good to be true, except this time it is real. 100%. No joke. How about a $25,000 membership to Front Sight Firearms Training Facility as a thank you bonus for a one-time donation to RBN of only $500? It is a Commander lifetime membership with no yearly fees or dues. The training is free for the rest of your life with over 50 different classes. Then leave it to your designated beneficiary. You provide the approved firearm, holster, ammo, eye, and ear protection. Many features and bonuses are included, more than you would ever expect or believe. This is the ultimate graduation present, wedding gift, etc., etc. See the details. Go to RBN's webpage and frontsight.com to make it happen. May 5th is the last day you will hear this offer on this radio network. Help keep RBN alive. Tell 5.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you some from Amazon.com. It really does work like the review says it does. I cannot believe that after the first few days, I didn't feel as sluggish or clogged up. It has had a profound impact on my physical, emotional well-being. I'm skeptical as most people about products and their claims, and I never write reviews, but this is a wonderful product and I recommend it to everyone. Great product. It has brought my blood pressure from the mid-150s over the 80s to the mid-130s over mid-80s, along with diet and exercise in just the past couple of months. Excellent. Thank you, David. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite. We the people
In order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. So over at reviewjournal.com, they have a commentary. The entrenched D.C. swamp launches a war against President Donald Trump. And they're describing this as a coup, a high-tech lynching, a Joe McCarthy-like witch hunt, and a massive government conspiracy all rolled into one. The unelected deep state and the D.C. swamp are at war with the elected president. Now, as I've said, I'm very disappointed in Donald Trump, but he is the elected president of the United States of America. And this nation cannot survive if the government refuses to play by the rules, which is what's happening right now. They've gone after Trump with that bogus Russian dossier, the illegal FISA wiretaps. They've tried to basically claim Trump was colluding with Russia. And by the way, there is no crime of collusion in U.S. law. Trump needs to put on the presidential brass knuckles. And not just for that, because during the commercial break, Claire was asking me, what do you think is going on? And I said, I don't know. There's all these mixed signals coming out of the administration. And I think there are factions. There is still a very powerful pro-war faction that wants to go on in and smash Syria to maintain the illusion of America's invincibility. And then there seems to be a faction that realizes that if we go up against Russia and China, we're biting off more than we could ever possibly chew. And they're duking it out behind the scenes. And obviously, I want the anti-war faction to win. But at this point, despite Trump softening his rhetoric, he's not in control. I don't think he's really in control. And he could be. All he's got to do is stand up and say, I am the president, by golly. And I'm the boss. And if you don't like it, you're fired. Now, getting on to the economic news, Rand Paul has introduced a bill to balance the federal budget in 5 years. Not only will this never get through Congress that loves to deficit spend like crazy, it would be impossible to balance the budget in 5 years unless all these wars were ended, all these foreign military bases were closed, all of these military people were brought back and put into the labor force, and the money invested in rebuilding our manufacturing and a healthy, organic, GMO-free agricultural sector. And that's not going to happen for reasons that Eisenhower made clear in his farewell address. Everybody's looking out for their own pocket. The intelligence agencies want war, it means bigger budgets. The Pentagon wants war, it means bigger budgets. Everybody's out there just grabbing more money, more power, and authority, and nobody's thinking about the welfare of the nation as a whole. That's supposed to be Trump's job, and he's not doing it. We'll be right back after station identification.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll-free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
This is RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, the history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. We're talking about the economic news here and the erosion of the U.S. dollar's preeminence in the global economy. It continues apace. Russia and China are gradually ditching the U.S. dollar in favor of their domestic currencies as trade booms. Now, you need to understand that much of the prosperity of the United States following World War II was based on just two different aspects. One was the fact that the United States was the only industrialized nation that still had its industrial base intact. All the other industrialized nations had their factories and factory machines bombed into rubble, and it took years for them to rebuild. And during that period of time, they had to come to the United States to buy machine tools, ball bearings, milling machines, all that kind of stuff, along with domestic consumer level products. And it was a boom time. The other aspect of it, and people need to pay attention to this, was that Roosevelt's deal with Churchill to bring the United States into the war against Germany on the side of Great Britain was that Great Britain would surrender the pound sterling's role as the global currency and allow the US dollar to take over. And Churchill stalled and stalled and stalled until it became very obvious he was not going to be able to save Great Britain from Germany without the assistance of the United States. So finally he capitulated. The US went on in, Hitler was defeated, and following the war, all of the world's major economic powers met at this luxury resort in New Hampshire called Bretton Woods, and they hammered out the Bretton Woods Agreement. And that agreement made the US dollar the global currency. Everybody would accept it. And at that point, it was tied to gold at $32 per ounce, which is why everyone used to say the US dollar is good as gold. And so everybody was using it, and things were really well until the French decided they wanted to cash in all of their accumulated paper notes for gold. And it turned out that the Federal Reserve, which is not really under the control of the US government, had been overprinting those paper dollars. And there wasn't enough gold to cover it all, and Nixon had to end gold convertibility. It was called the Nixon shock. And following that, in order to keep up foreign demand for US dollars, they came up with the petrodollar deal. They went into the oil-producing nations in the Middle East and they said, if you promise to sell your oil only for the US dollar, you can invest that dollar back in the US and get very, very rich, and we, the United States, will protect you from aggression from your neighbors, first and foremost Israel. Well, especially since 9/11, it's become very obvious that the United States cannot keep that promise. And more nations are saying, why should we go through the US dollar, which we have to pay interest on, or we have to trade some of our manufactured goods and agriculture for, to buy oil from a third party or other raw materials? And they're starting to move away. And this is what has triggered a lot of these wars. The war in Iraq against Saddam Hussein was not about nuclear weapons, which didn't exist. It was about Saddam Hussein getting permission from the United Nations to sell Iraq's oil for the euro. The incursion into Libya and the murder of Muammar Gaddafi was not because he was a nasty person. but because he wanted to sell Libya's oil for the gold dinar, a currency based on value, not debt. That's what this is all about. It's a world war over whose brand of ink and paper the world will use for currency for the next 100 years. And by the way, in this day and age of instantaneous global financial transactions, the idea of a single currency is obsolete. It is not needed, but the U.S. is trying to maintain it because they have nothing else with which to prop up our economy. Our manufacturing has declined. Our sales to other countries has declined. Nobody wants our GMO agriculture. And so that petrodollar deal and forcing other countries to have to go through the U.S. dollar so that the U.S. gets a piece of the action of other countries' trade, it's essential. Without that, the whole ball of wax collapses. So last year, bilateral trade between Russia and China reached $87 billion. This year, it's expected to go over $100 billion. And they're starting to say they're going to do the settlements in the ruble and the yuan. They're not going to use the U.S. dollar or any other Western currencies. And that may be another reason why so many people are talking about it's time to get Russia and China. They're evil people. They're not evil people. They just don't want to be slaves to the U.S. currency. Primarily because it's usurious, it's unstable, it's not backed by anything ever since Nixon ended gold convertibility. In fact, the only thing that backs up the U.S. paper dollar is your future slave labor. That's it. Because every time the U.S. government needs more money, they'll issue a treasury bond. They'll send it over to the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve will issue new money and send it back to the U.S. government. Most of it's in a computer. Some of it will be turned into actual ink and paper and coinage by the U.S. Treasury, by the U.S. Mint, rather. And those treasury bonds are redeemed by future taxes. Your slave labor, meaning the government will take away money from you and give you absolutely nothing in return for it. And if that doesn't meet the definition of slavery, I don't know what will. We're going to do a shout out now to our Honor affiliates who are just now rejoining the network. Pardon me. Tucker Carlson, doing a lot of good TV, did that absolutely amazing story on Syria. He's getting a lot of flack for it from the Warhawks. And apparently he did another show just last night where he was talking about student loan debt with Professor Brian Kaplan and basically saying that this student loan crisis is crushing an entire generation. We're having these kids, scholarships are disappearing, and to go to prices of college have soared way out of line with the rate of inflation. And so to go to college, these students are being encouraged to take out these student loans for $50,000, $60,000, $100,000, and they're assured that after they graduate, they're going to find a high-paying job and they'll pay those loans off just like that. And it's not happening. We're creating a generation of college graduates who will spend their lives as debt slaves, which is exactly what the bankers want. Now, out in California and demonstrating that there apparently is no constitutional requirement that politicians have a brain. They're facing a $1 trillion unfunded pension liability, and the California legislature is focusing on foam plastic and disposable plastic straws. They want to ban plastic bags, packing foam, and disposable plastic straws. That's their idea of a solution. It's not going to work. I mean, these are all liberal things. Oh, protect the environment. We've got to, protect the landfills and everything. And I agree with recycling, and I'm a big fan of the new stainless steel reusable straws as long as they're properly milled. There was a big embarrassment with one of the franchise shops. I'm not going to name who they are because they did fix the issue. But they came out with stainless steel reusable straws. The edges, the ends were still raw, and kids were literally cutting the inside of their mouth with them. But yeah, let's recycle. Let's not do that. But it's not going to fix the $1 trillion unfunded pension liability, because the unfunded pension liability was caused, first of all, by the decline in employment, and the decline in pension payments that are coming on in. They're running it the same way as Social Security. The money being paid in today is used to pay out for pension requirements rather than being properly invested and grown over time. And the other issue, of course, is that like so many other pensions, they invested in the mortgage-backed security fraud on Wall Street back in 2008, and they got hammered. And nobody has the courage to stand up and say, the money junkies made this mess. They should pay for it. Not the pensioners, not the ordinary taxpayers. The money junkies made this mess. Why aren't they paying for it? Why is it that every time the money junkies get caught in another fraud, or they wreck another company, or they're on the verge of collapse, there's another taxpayer-funded bailout and nobody goes to jail for the criminality? Something that you all should be thinking about here. Now, back to the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline. Finland has given the green light for the pipeline to proceed through their territory. So this project is moving forward, and of course, American pipeline owners don't like it. It's going to bypass Russia and Ukraine. So Poroshenko doesn't like it because he can no longer extort Europe by threatening to shut off their share of the oil and gas coming through that pipeline. Those pipelines are very strategic assets. It's easy to think of them just as it's a pipeline. But where they go and who they serve and who gets the money for the use of the pipeline, those are very strategic concerns. All right, we're going to take a phone call. Kevin in West Virginia. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mr. Mike. I hope you're having a great and wonderful day. I have a little concern. Well, I'm confused about Bolton, the guy that Trump pointed. I know he's a war hawk. I know he's a neocon, and I know he's the progenitor of the Iraq War. My question is, I hear Roger Stone talking him up and saying that he just did what his bosses told him to do whenever he was under the Bush's administration. My question is, can we trust this guy with his past? Or is Roger Stone right? He's just was following what his bosses told him to do, talking about the Bushes.
Well, it's a little bit of both, because when Bolton was working under the Bushes were war hawks. And as to whether he is doing what Donald Trump is telling him to do, I'm less inclined to think that's the case. And again, this goes back to Donald Trump saying that he wanted to get out of Syria, wanted to start bringing the troops home, and immediately there's this reversal. And apparently it was very contentious. And even the White House spokesperson said that Trump was not happy about this, but it basically revealed he's not calling the shots. And I really do think it was a mistake to put John Bolton back in there because the deep state, the bureaucracy, the unelected portion of our government, they're putting together a war machine and a war cabinet to surround Donald Trump and make sure that he goes the direction they want him to go. And that's one of the reasons why we're getting all these mixed signals out of the White House. I'm seeing a major faction fight going on in there between those who just want to go on ahead and smash Syria to prove America's invincible might, the threat of nuclear war be gosh darn, and the other cooler heads who are saying, we really do need to rethink, can we take on Russia and China together and have a positive outcome, which I don't think it's possible, even if it goes nuclear.
No, I totally agree with you. There's no way we can fight China and Russia together. I mean, neither one by themselves. I mean, look at our weapons. My other question is, everybody knows that this thing in Syria is a false flag. Why can't Donald Trump be on board and see for himself that this is a false flag too? And then under Article 2 of the Constitution, why can't Trump, take executive, it gives him the executive power to fire all these people. Why don't he just clean house? And who cares about the optics at this point?
I would like to see that happen. Trump's biggest mistake coming into the White House was being magnanimous in defeat and keeping all these Obama holdovers in the mistaken impression that because he was now the boss, they would be loyal to him. And that's how it works in the world of business. That's not how it works in Washington, D.C. Unfortunately, more than a year into his first term in office, the damage has been done, and he's being surrounded. And like I said, I think that fire in Trump Tower was a warning to Donald Trump that he'd better toe the line, or bad things will happen to his real estate empire and possibly his family.
Isn't that racketeering?
Yes,
To
it
threaten
is.
him like that?
Yeah, but our entire government is acting like the mafia right now.
Totally agree. Well, that's all I have for you. I just hope Trump will take the power that the Constitution gives him under Article 2 and get rid of these people. Fire everyone and have them reapply is my advice. And I don't know if it's good advice or bad advice, but if I was him, that's what I would do.
Well, I think it's very good advice, but again, were he to try and do that, he's in all probability going to get the Kennedy treatment. But if he does do that, if he fires everybody and starts to rehire, I'm still holding out for head of NASA.
I agree with you. Oh, and don't forget, NASA means to deceive.
Well, we used to say,
NASA
those of us who worked there, we used to say, never a straight answer, which was certainly the case during the Viking Life Sciences program.
Well, you have a great day, sir, and give Miss Claire the best, and I won't take up any more of your time.
Well, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Curtis in Nevada. Aloha, Curtis. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hi, Mike. First of all, I agree with your caller, Catherine, that if Trump actually does something, he can be charged with that, and he might be, and that's probably one reason why it's holding back. With your last caller, he asked, why doesn't Trump just fire everybody that he knows is deep state? You know, when they went after his lawyer, I think that's what they thought he would react by firing Mueller, and that would give them the chance to go after him for obstruction, or at least another 2 years of investigation. So, you know, if he tries to fire people, or he comes out and says the deep state they're working against me, they're coming up with all these things that they expect me to go along, and if I don't, I'm going to come up here and declare these people are undermining me. He's basically admitting to a civil war is going on right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Again, governments like to present a unified face to the public to reassure the public things are running smoothly. But at this point, they're failing on that. People are looking closely at what's going on in the government, and they're seeing all these different competing agendas fighting with each other. I don't think Trump is going to fire Mueller, and I would advise against it, not because of any concerns about impeachment for obstruction of justice, but Mueller has turned into a joke and an embarrassment. And the longer he thrashes around going after porn stars and stuff like that, the worse it makes him and the entire Department of Justice look.
Yeah, if Trump was actually to announce publicly that these people are working against me and there's civil war type of thing mentality, that people are going to be looking at a constitutional crisis, and the media is going to start saying Trump is unstable, he's irrational, I think there's another reason to remove him. See, so really, to me, he's fighting like a tap dance. And he got the reaction he wanted, I think, when he made that announcement. And if you read Trump, that tweet that he made about the smart rockets, okay, that sounds pretty alarming, and I was alarmed. But when I went into his tweet thing, he did about almost a dozen tweets that same night. He did about 3 or 4 tweets regarding Syria, and the pattern that I saw, that an hour later was another tweet on Syria, and it was like a carrot approach after the stick approach. He did that with North Korea. He did it to the Rocket Man. Now they're BFFs. See what I mean? So I see that's his way of dealing with this. Now he's starting to back off on this talk, and now maybe it's going to get down to an investigation thing. He's basically kind of like, okay, you know, it looked like it was going to be something, but every day that goes by, it's going to diminish that chance of it being something big.
Okay,
you know,
well,
and that's
first
what
of
I'm
all,
hoping for.
let me back on up. I don't think Trump and Kim Jong-un are BFFs. I don't think they're even close. And you're right that one of Trump's negotiating issues is to go way overboard, then pull back to what is acceptable to everybody. But in this particular case, the issue with Syria is a little more complex. He's going to be advised that he has to do something. And certainly the last thing that anybody in Washington, D.C. wants is an open, honest investigation of what actually did happen in Duma, because at this point, it's not even certain that any kind of an attack took place at all with chemical weapons, let alone that Assad had anything to do with it. And you heard the story that we came out with earlier in the day. The White House is already saying it doesn't matter what the OPCW finds or doesn't find, it's not going to have any impact on the decision of what to do about Syria.
Yeah, the White House is saying that, but until I hear Trump say that, I'm not going to believe that's what's going to happen. And I'm hoping I'm right. You know, I mean, once again, they're putting it out there, and he has to respond to it like he's on board, but not really. See, they're doing the narrative, and he's just trying to kind of like diffuse what they're trying to push him to do, and that's what I'm hoping to see that we're looking at.
All right. Well, maybe. I hope you're right. And we're going to let you go here. We got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be back with another phone call.
My name is Don Wiskin, and at 42 years old, I suffered a massive heart attack, lost 35% of my heart to damaged tissue, and was supposed to spend the rest of my life on disability. What did I do? I took Extendivite, a garlic and cayenne mix of 7 herbs which rebuilt my heart and gave me back my life. For over 17 years now, I have made this formula available to you so you don't have to suffer the same thing I did. Clean your blocked arteries and strengthen your heart and boost your natural immune system. I'm 60 years old now and I still work every day. To get your Extendivite, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com. Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We're going to go back to the phones to Ross in North Carolina. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, what's up there, Mike? Oh, it's Mark. That's right. Sorry. Yeah, I just was thinking about going on here with Syria. I really don't think Trump knows what he's doing. I think he's out of the league. What I would have done if I was Trump is my first day in office, I would have gotten rid of all the intelligence heads. Comey, what's the other guy's name? The guy from the CIA.
Ray McGovern.
The other no, not Ray. I would have had a guy like McGovern working for me, but I would have gotten rid of the other two.
You mean Mike Pompeo?
Well, I wouldn't have a guy like Pompeo. The guy who was the head of the CIA under Obama.
John Brennan.
I would have gotten rid of him, John Brennan, and the other guy, Clapper. I would have gotten rid of Clapper. And then I would have ordered troops. I mean, when I say troops, I mean troops. I'm not talking about federal police, soldiers that I felt were loyal, and I would have ordered them to raid the FBI, CIA, all those headquarters, Justice Department, the IRS, maybe more of these alphabet agencies, seize every computer, every file they had. Then I'd start hunting down the dangerous deep staters that I thought, might be a threat, and start prosecuting them.
Well,
And
there's
hire
one flaw in
my
that
own-
theory.
My own security.
There's one flaw in that theory. Again, ignoring the risk that Trump would get the Kennedy treatment, is the fact that people at the top of the deep state, they have lines of communication that are outside official channels. Think about Hillary Clinton and her private email server and how long she ran that and nobody knew about it. So Trump could send the troops into the official offices of the Department of Justice, FBI, CIA, and so forth. They're not going to find anything incriminating because the people who are at the top of those organizations, they have other means of communication that are specifically outside.
Yeah, but I would go further than that. I would have fired all of the heads of those agencies and even at the top, the people I couldn't fire because of civil service law. I transferred them, like let's say FBI agents. I put a whole mess of FBI agents working along the oldest part of the Canadian border in Alaska, and places where they have to go to work using a dog sled or a snowmobile, and say, okay, you want to stay in the FBI? This is where you're going to work. I'd just do something like that with the CIA. I'd assign them to the basement of Langley, Virginia, putting files, moving files around. And then I would put people I know are loyal to me, loyal to this country, especially, and I put them in place. This way, he could have avoided the possibility, like you said, getting the Kennedy treatment. That's what JFK should have done too. When JFK when Operation Northwood was presented to JFK, he should have not only threw him out of the office, he should have said, no, stay right here. He should have called the military police and the Secret Service. I want these people arrested, period.
I don't recall that Operation Northwoods went all the way to Kennedy. I think it was nixed by the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. But remember what happened when John F. Kennedy did try and break up the Central Intelligence Agency. He signed an executive order that transferred control of covert paramilitary operations from the CIA to the Pentagon. And it was never carried out because the bureaucracy always protects itself.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He didn't go far enough. At a time like this, he would have been better off to use the military. The military is usually much more loyal to the Constitution and to the American people. Not always, not the top brass like the generals. I haven't been in the Army myself. Generals normally you don't get the flag rank normally. There are a few exceptions, unless you got your head stuck up somebody's you-know-what.
Yes.
Okay, or you got somebody's you-know-what in your mouth. That's basically how somebody becomes a general. The best troops do not become generals. This is why you got a lot of colonels and stuff that people retire as colonel or major, and that's as far as they've got. Not because they weren't any good, because they were too good. And General Flynn was an exception. Okay.
So was Smedley Butler.
Oh, I'm talking right now. Now, back in the day when you had like World War I, World War II, especially World War II, they had to have good generals because we were in danger. If we lost the war there, we were in danger of being occupied by an enemy force. We were really fighting for our lives at that time, for the United States. Either Germany or Japan or both could have very possibly invaded the U.S. at the time. So they had to have good generals. They had to have people like Eisenhower, Patton, not Montgomery, the other Clark, and the other guy's name. The guy who was who used to feud with Patton, at least in the movie he did. Anyway, they would have had they had to have good generals. With MacArthur, they had to have good generals at that time, and good admirals. Otherwise, we might have lost the war. Even though a lot of people don't realize it.
One advantage of war is it does restore meritocracy in terms of promotion. Anyway, listen, Ross, I'm going to have to let you go. We got to take another break for commercials. We have more callers waiting on the line, and we'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure. Declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, the number 2, keep it today.
Do you worry a lot? If you're forgetful, nervous, moody, or overwhelmed, chances are you're not protecting yourself from the ravaging effects of stress and anxiety. No matter the cause, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, your quality of life, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in as little as 1 to 2 weeks and increase your ability to recall facts, names, and numbers in 4 to 12 weeks. Calm and Clever was created by scientist Kurt Hendricks, a principal investigator in 2 NIH-funded studies on Alzheimer's disease. Try Calm and Clever for 2 months. You'll feel the difference. Call 1-800-758-8746 or go to calmandclever.com.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AirOutfitting.com.
Well, they're stealing down on Wall Street and in Washington, too. You know, it makes me wonder, what's a guy on Main Street to do? Always tried to be honest, upstanding kind of guy. I must admit lately I thought about giving something else a try. Oh, I want to be a pirate. I want to sail the 7 seas. Yeah, I want to be a pirate.
And aloha America, welcome back to the show here. We're going to go back to the phones to James in North Carolina. Aloha, James. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hi, Mike. Yeah, something you said just a few minutes ago, I think that was good advice for Trump. to leave Robert Mueller alone. There's an old saying: when your political adversaries are making fools of themselves, the best thing you can do is stay out of their way.
Yes.
And I was wanting to talk about what I think is probably the biggest screw up that Robert Mueller has made so far. I don't know if it has legal implications, but that early morning no-knock raid on Paul Manafort's home back in July of last year apparently came several days, about a week before Rob Rosenstein issued a memo giving him authority to do it. I don't know if you had looked at that, or I was just wondering what your take on that was.
Well, my take on that would depend on who signed the search warrant. Because, I mean, the Department of Justice issues its own warrants, for raids and various other things. So while Mueller may not have officially been the special counsel, it was still reasonable that somebody who was involved with that, Rod Rosenstein, could have signed that warrant. But it does betray the fact that there was a plan to go after Trump's people and just start picking them off, looking for somebody who could be turned to build a case for either criminal prosecution or impeachment.
My understanding is that Manafort's lawyer had made a motion. I'm not sure exactly whose court it was in or where it was, that about that apparently retroactive authority that was given by Rosenstein. But I don't know if that will go anywhere or not.
Well, it depends on the judge that they get, but if you really think about it, Robert Mueller's witch hunt is totally in non-compliance with the special counsel statute, which requires, first of all, a regular Department of Justice investigation, and only after that investigation indicates that a crime has probably been committed is the special counsel supposed to be appointed. And that special counsel is only supposed to investigate that one specific crime. In the case of Rod Rosenstein, he simply came on into Mueller and said, "You're a special counsel, find something on Donald Trump."
Yeah, that's what he did. Well, thanks a lot.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to switch over to Eric in Tennessee. Aloha, Eric. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Michael. I wanted to talk about Federal Reserve notes. I noticed that there hasn't been one issued, at least from what I've seen, after 2013. And I wonder if that has anything to do with the original charter of the Federal Reserve was good for 100 years.
Well, unfortunately, back, I think it was in the 1930s, Congress amended the charter to make it open-ended. And I know when the 100 years came and went, everybody was saying the Fed is going to shut down, the Fed is going to shut down. And I was saying, no, Congress sold out. They made the charter open-ended. There's no expiration date on the Federal Reserve. Now, the reason you may not be seeing more recent Federal Reserve notes is, again, more and more commerce is moving over to the electronic paradigm, and they may not feel that there needs to be a lot of new notes being made. I forget what the lifespan of one of these cotton linen notes actually is. It's quite a number of years, though.
Yeah. Well, I think the cryptos are the way to go for the future. You know, I'm the Bitcoin guy, so unfortunately you can't play with that over there right now.
No,
can you play with that offshore? You can't. Okay. I wish I could help you with that, but
well, you're right. I've got two.
Try to get you some.
Yeah, I've got a 2009 and two 2013s, and that's all I've got in here. Of course, we're out here on the boonies, out in the middle of the ocean. The new bills may be slow getting out here. What can I tell you?
Well, I just had some tree cutting done today, so I needed some Federal Reserve notes. So I went to the credit union, and I got, several hundred of them. And none of them were past 2013. So I just wonder if there's some validity to that. And they printed up a bunch ahead, knowing that their whole system's going to collapse. That was my thought process.
I have no idea, but I think probably I'm sure that newer notes are being printed up, but probably just not as many because, again, they're trying to push toward the cashless society. They want people using the plastic, so the bank gets a piece of the action when you buy a jelly donut or a newspaper, and more importantly, the government knows you bought a jelly donut and a newspaper, which I find to be an unacceptable invasion of my privacy. Okay?
Totally agree with you there. So anyway, I'll let you go. You have a great night, and I appreciate talking to you.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go. Now, interestingly enough, I was just watching on the Fox News crawl. Apparently, the New York Times ran an article saying that Donald Trump had attempted to fire Robert Mueller. Well, to paraphrase Vladimir Putin, if Trump had fired Mueller, Mueller would be fired, period, end of discussion. And the White House is out there saying, no, that did not happen. So once again, we have the New York Slimes out there just trying to stir up trouble with these fraudulent claims. Now, getting on back to the economic news, as you know, one of the reasons the U.S. government is making stink face at China, especially with the tariffs and trade war, has to do with what are called rare earth elements, which right now China is the world's biggest supplier of these. And we're talking about elements like yttrium, europium, terbium, dysprosium. These go into computers, phones, electric cars, solar panels, batteries, electronic equipment. They're critical to our modern high-tech existence. And the U.S. doesn't like the idea of China basically dominating the market. If anybody's going to dominate the market, it will be the United States of America because that's what makes America great again. It turns out that is no longer the case. Scientists have apparently by accident discovered a massive load of rare earth metals found in the ocean off the coast of Japan. They're saying there's so much down there, they're calling it a semi-infinite supply, which is kind of a weird wordage, but they're basically saying they don't know how long it's going to last, but it's going to be a really long time. And that will break the Chinese monopoly. Of course, I don't know what the cost of extracting the rare earth elements from under the ocean is going to be, but if they're available in bulk, that might actually result in lower prices for these high-tech instruments. That being said, I think that when we talk about recycling electronics, that some way to recover some of these elements needs to be developed, cost-effective means. Because that's one of the big problems with all of this high tech. It's all put into these large chips, these boards, and it's very hard to separate out. All right, let's go back to the phones here. Teresa in Alaska, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. Hey, I heard that about the dollar bill, and I have a brick and mortar store. So the other weekend, I had 713 bills to go through.
Yes.
And there were hundreds, 50s, 20s. They were everything. What I came up with, it looked like to me, they did not print any in 05. Then they printed in 06. They did not print any in 07 or 08. They printed in 09. And then I had none from 10, 11, 12, and then I have from 13. So I think you're right. People aren't using the money as much, and it's not wearing out as fast. So they're probably not replacing it every year like they did in the past. Anyway, that was my little scientific thing.
Well, okay. I mean, not that I have a lot of cash in my pocket right now because I don't, but I just went through all the singles, and again, nothing later than 2013. That may have been the last time they ran those printing presses. There's no rule that says they have to run all the time.
I had a lot of 2009s, but no 10s, 11s, or 12s.
I
had a lot of 06s, but no 7s or 8s.
Well, you know, I mean,
I think they are skipping years because they just don't need to print them.
It makes perfect sense. I mean, these bills do last a long time. And again, the U.S. Mint is actually contracted to the Federal Reserve to produce whatever portion of the new money is deemed to be necessary as currency. I imagine that they're not printing new bills all the time. And they talk about, you know, this series, that series, and every time there's a new bill that comes out, there are always very minute changes to it to try and foil counterfeiters, who are unfortunately, sadly, very clever, and none is more clever than the Federal Reserve itself, which actually has their counterfeiting operation legalized. Anything else, Teresa?
No, I just hope that puts that to rest about the fake charter in 2013 being the last bill.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Again, the Federal Reserve's charter was amended by Congress in the 1930s to make it open-ended. So the Federal Reserve will be with us forever, except, of course, Congress can rescind the charter anytime they want to. They have to pay the Federal Reserve back for the money that was loaned by the Federal Reserve to the U.S. government in 1913. But obviously, in today's dollars, it's not a huge amount of money. The reason Congress will never rescind the charter of the Federal Reserve is the Federal Reserve is a very generous donor to congressional campaigns. Teresa, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to let you go. And getting on back to the news here, Trump has now signed an executive order to make sure illegal aliens can't collect welfare benefits. That is an important first step to cutting off the financial incentive for illegal immigrants to come to the U.S. Because they'll come to the U.S., they don't speak English, they don't have job skills, they just register to vote Democratic and they go on welfare. And the legal American citizens are paying the costs, and we're talking billions of dollars involved here. And so Trump has signed this executive order saying that illegal aliens who come to this country cannot collect welfare benefits for so many years after they get here. Meaning they have to come here, they have to be able to find work to support themselves, they're not going to get handouts. And I think that's probably going to be more effective at deterring illegal immigrants than the wall will be. Now, the city of Orange, California has jumped on board the bandwagon. They are filing suit against the state government over the sanctuary city status. Like so many other cities and counties in California, they've had it. They've absolutely had it. Now, as you know, President Donald Trump has requested the National Guard head for the border with Mexico, and California's Governor Jerry Brown is deploying 400 National Guard troops to their border with Mexico. Now, if you look at how long that border is, on a map of the United States, it's certainly not as long as the border involving Texas, but it's still a lot of territory, and it's questionable how effective 400 National Guard troops are going to be guarding that border, especially when you realize that only a third of them will be on the border at any one time. The others will be out resting, sleeping, cleaning their gear. So it looks like Jerry Brown is trying to have his open border and eat it too, or something along that line. Now, over in Sweden, as you know, they have a very liberal government, a very feminist government. They're in love with their open borders, and as a result, Sweden has just suffered immensely under the flood of the refugees. Sweden has become the rape capital of Europe, and now it's resulted in a new political party being founded to challenge the Sweden Democrats. And this Swedish party is anti-migrant, and it's called Alternative for Sweden, basically modeling itself after Alternative for Germany. And it's calling itself the Repatriation Party, saying that if they can win the elections and displace the Sweden Democrats, they're going to kick the refugees out of Sweden. And they're talking hundreds of thousands of these refugees will have to go somewhere else. Take them to the border and fling them across. No doubt Brussels and George Soros are going to go on in there and try and stop that. But again, this push for globalism and a one world government is being done with complete and total disregard for the damage that's occurring, the harm that's being done to the people, the contagious diseases that are being given free rein over the face of planet Earth. And that really is the danger when you're dealing with what are called the true believers, the people who believe they serve a higher purpose, and so the laws shouldn't apply to them, that they shouldn't be concerned with the death and harm and illness that they leave in their wake, because they serve that higher purpose. People like that are very dangerous, and they get us into some of the worst disasters we've ever seen. the first war in Iraq. Oh, yes, we've got to go into Iraq. I believe the war is necessary. So even though we have to lie to get the people into it, I believe in that noble purpose. Over in Hungary, Viktor Orban is celebrating his election victory. It was a landslide. And he's now out there basically keeping his campaign promise to strengthen the sovereign policies of Hungary. And he's saying there will be no United States of Europe. He's going to stand fast against the integration of Europe or the federalization of Europe that they're hearing out of Brussels. So I hope he's able to do it. Frankly, I hope he's wearing his Kevlar, because Viktor Orban has become threat number one to holding the EU together, and certainly he's a major blockage to this moving forward on the New World Order, one world government. Now, apparently, 9 of the Remain groups in Great Britain have joined forces to demand a second Brexit referendum. They weren't able to cheat their way to victory the first time. They want to have a second try, or they want to just keep having the referendums until they get the result they want, which is not the way democracy is supposed to work. But apparently they're backed by £1 million in funding to try and stop Brexit. And the cross-party push is fronted by Tory Anna Soubry and Labour's Chuka Umunna. We don't care what you British people want. We want one world government, and we will have it no matter how many of you we have to kill. Now, not too long ago, we were talking about, well, actually, we've got to take a break for commercials. So we'll be right back after these words.
Hey, honey, I'm home. I grabbed a newspaper on the way home. Look at all the news today.
Don't you know that all you're going to get in the newspaper is propaganda, twisted news, and false information?
Honey, this is a national newspaper. It has to be true.
Ha! For some reason, the majority of the population believe anything the mainstream media tells them. The newspaper doesn't give out the important attention of what's happening to this country and news that affects our daily lives. Say, does that newspaper mention anything about the North American Union?
No, not that I can see.
I didn't think so. You need to go to www.newswithviews.com, where truth is more important than political correctness. That's www.newswithviews.com. Hey, don't throw that away. We can use that in the birdcage.
Okay, move over. Let me start reading newswithviews.com.
The truth? Read all about it at newswithviews.com. Newswithviews.com, where reality shatters illusion.
So, you love talk radio, then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Do you or a loved one suffer migraine headaches? Listen to what scientist Kurt Hendricks has to say.
If you are one of the millions of people who get migraines, you need to know about MigRelief. Hi, I'm Kurt Hendricks, the scientist who created MigRelief, the patented dietary supplement that addresses nutritional deficiencies in adults and children with migraines. Thousands of physicians and pharmacists recommend MigRelief.
Call 800-MIG-7354 or visit MIG911.com.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about Angioprim. He said chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. You know, after just 1 week of taking Angioprim, the pain was gone, and now I'm back in the gym full strength. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com. IOPRIM.com or talk to a trained consultant. Call Angioprim toll free at 877-882-7221. You'll feel better with more energy. Call 877-882-7221 or go to the website angioprim.com.
We will not go down in the night without a fight. You can burn up our mosques and our homes and our schools, but our spirit will never die. We will not go down in Gaza tonight.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. Now, one of the things that we have seen both in the United States and in Europe is this coddling and pandering to the illegal immigrants and the refugees, to the point where a lot of the legal citizens are wondering what's going on. Here in the United States of America, the illegal immigrants are getting better treatment than the legal American citizens. And it really is very angry and upsetting. And I think a good example of this is this story that came back in 2016. And it had to do with this Iraqi refugee up in Austria who violently sexually assaulted a 10-year-old boy in the changing room of this public swimming pool in Austria. And the rapist, identified as Amir A., 20 years old, claimed it was a sexual emergency because he had not had sex for 4 months. Have you not heard about masturbation? And he was, of course, convicted for the sexual assault. But an appeals court overturned his conviction because prosecutors couldn't prove that he realized the boy was saying no. Now, I'm sorry, if you're violently raping somebody, I think the body language is going to give it away whether they're on board with you or not. Because, after all, I'm sure all 10-year-old boys want to be attacked in a changing room. Just common sense. But it really, we have countries in Europe that have passed laws saying that people who commit these crimes cannot be identified as refugees in the media reports because they're pushing that open borders, one world government agenda. All right, let's take a phone call. Scott in Texas. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, it's been a while since I called in, and I want to kind of change gears a little bit because the Oklahoma City bombing reunion is coming up the 19th next week. And I've been doing interviews with a guy that is a whistleblower. He was a CIA operative, Cody Snodgrass. I have a ton of podcasts on my YouTube channel. And y'all can go check it out at Snafu Radio on YouTube. But I've been censored and struck, so I can't even upload for 3 months now. But I have about 25 or 30 podcasts with Cody, and he has some really good information. And next week in Oklahoma, they're having the big reunion. And from what we understand, we can't really talk too much about it, but there's supposed to be a new whistleblower coming out. We don't even know what it's about. I'm going up there. I'm going to be acting as news, and I'm going to film a lot of this stuff because, it's only a 4-hour drive for me. And so they invited me up as the news and blah, 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 blah. So I was just kind of wanting to get the information out to everybody because I've heard some people make comments on my channel about your show. We talk about your show occasionally. I hear the music.
Scott, stay on the line. We got to take a short break for station identification. I'm going to come right back to you after these few words.
This is too good to be true, except this time it is real. 100%. No joke. How about a $25,000 membership to Front Sight Firearms Training Facility as a thank you bonus for a one-time donation to RBN of only $500? It is a Commander lifetime membership with no yearly fees or dues. The training is free for the rest of your life with over 50 different classes. Then leave it to your designated beneficiary. You provide the approved firearm, holster, ammo, eye, and ear protection. Many features and bonuses are included, more than you would ever expect or believe. This is the ultimate graduation present, wedding gift, etc., etc. See the details. Go to RBN's webpage and frontsight.com to make it happen. May 5th is the last day you will hear this offer on this radio network. Help keep RBN alive. Tell 5.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show, hour number 3. And we're talking with Scott in Texas, and we're talking about that we're coming up on the anniversary of the bombing of the Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City. As you know, a lot of reasons to think that it, too, was another staged government false flag. Of course, I have an article on it permanently in that little gray menu bar right near the top of my page. And Scott was talking about how there's going to be this get-together, and there may be a new whistleblower. Now, I don't know if this is the whistleblower or not, but I was listening to Michael Herzog's program earlier, and he was talking about this. And apparently there are now a total of 4 witnesses to the execution of Timothy McVeigh who insist he was still breathing after he'd been pronounced dead. And a lot of other funny stuff going on there. Normally, when a criminal is executed, there's supposed to be an autopsy. Timothy McVeigh had gone to a judge and requested no autopsy. The judge agreed, and apparently, we are told, following the execution, the body was immediately cremated, and the ashes were presented to McVeigh's lawyers. And for all we know, Timothy McVeigh is still out there somewhere with a lot of facial hair and a new identity. So, again, another lie from a government that lies. And we are going to be talking about that as we come up on the 19th. So, Scott, what do you want to share with us about this?
Well, you were absolutely correct. The Oklahoma City bombing was a false flag. And like you alluded to quite some time ago when Waco was demolished by our favorite government, or that's a whole other topic, but all the evidence was taken to the Murrah building. Also, a lot of the evidence from the depleted uranium for all the ammunition that was shot over there in the Gulf War. This is another topic that was never really addressed, but all the depleted uranium got so many of the Gulf War syndrome was basically depleted uranium. Well, all that information was sent to where? The Murrah building, and just happened to go up with everything else, along with all the files from the Rose Law Firm. So it all ties directly back into Clinton and all those cover-ups, and everything was a false flag. It goes right along with it. Cody was offered $1 million. If y'all want to just hashtag his name, it's hashtag Cody Snodgrass. Then y'all find plenty of videos, and y'all can go back and listen to tons and tons, hours of interviews with him. But he was framed. He was offered $1 million to blow it up. He didn't want to do it for patriotic reasons, so he was framed, sent to prison right beside Timothy McVeigh. So this guy has the amount of information that Cody can sit there and spout off. It's like it was yesterday for this guy. Now, he almost got killed in a car wreck during Christmas, and it's pretty well kind of believe that it was a hit job. It didn't go right because they didn't kill him. And so he's still back out, but he's got severe nerve damage. It almost broke his neck. So, but anyhow, he's getting better. We talk almost every other day, and I get a lot of information from him. He was wanting to try to go to OKC, but it doesn't look like he's going to be able to make it because he has too many doctor's appointments that he just can't miss. Because now they're kind of thinking that he might have got a little bit of poison too. They just don't know. But as far as the reunion going next Thursday, I'm going to be up there. I'm going to do quite a few reports. I think William Denny's supposed to be there. I might get to meet him. And when I do a few reports, I'll even mention your show because, some of your listeners have mentioned mentioned you saying that, I mentioned Cody on Michael Rivero's show. And, and we even talked about it one day on one of our podcasts. It's like, Michael Rivero, is on his show and blah, 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 blah. So we'll throw a little bone your way whenever we get a chance, and just because, everybody in the independent media needs to support each other no matter how they do it, and it's just spreading the word. I mean, because most of us we don't have a lot of money. We're not George Soros funding all this stuff. So, if people can't make a donation, then the least they can do is spread the information out. And that's basically what I ask people to do. It's like, look, just get the information out because my channel has been suppressed so hard. Like I said, I can't even upload anything till like July 5th or something. So I'm operating off Periscope right now, which is, it's okay, I guess. But I had 15,000 subs on my channel. I can't even send a message to. So that'll tell you how YouTube has knocked me down flat. But anyway, that's basically all I got. And next week, when I get up there and do some reports, I might try to call in and kind of get your listeners up to speed on stuff. And if there's anything super juicy, I'm sure call in.
Well, thank you very much for that. What's really interesting is the minister that married Claire and I was in Oklahoma City when the bombing occurred. And so the first thing he thought is he was going to go on over and volunteer to help look for survivors. And he had to show his ID something like 6 times before he was allowed onto the building site. And he noticed at the time that even though they could still hear people inside the building calling for help, there were all these guys in suits and ties who were running around picking up paperwork and shoving it in boxes and taking it away, as well as taping black plastic over the shattered ends of the load-bearing members. And so it really was this, very obvious false flag. And again, I have a page at the top that shows that. And you may want to look at that. All right, let's take another phone call. Nathan in Northern California. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, hi, Michael. I wasn't going to call in till about December with this little tidbit of information, but I've heard you mention Winston Churchill today and Pearl Harbor yesterday, about trickery and deceit and all the skullduggery that can happen, to lead us into war. Last week, I was watching a video on YouTube, and the title of it is David Niven Interview Talking Pictures. And at the 24-minute mark, he's talking about being over in Great Britain back in World War II. And he was staying out at this estate, and this very wealthy person gave a wing of the estate to Winston Churchill. And so he'd come out there from London to get away from things, and he'd bump into David Niven, and they would go for these short walks. And so Niven says he's talking to Churchill, and things were going very badly for Great Britain at the time, and he said, "Do you think America will ever get into the war?" And Churchill said, "Mark my words, something cataclysmic will occur." And Niven said to the interviewer, he says, "I haven't heard the word cataclysmic since." But 6 weeks later, Pearl Harbor happened.
Yes.
So 4 months later, he's on leave, and he's back at this estate, he bumps into Churchill again, and he said to him, "Do you remember our last conversation?" And he said, "I most certainly do." He said, "How did you know?" He said, "Young man, I study history." And on that note, Michael, I don't believe a word of that. I don't believe that line at all. I think Churchill was in on the whole thing. He at least had the gist of it, that Roosevelt was up to something that was no good. And when you're talking about Pearl Harbor being a false flag, there's a little bit of history for you that reveals it. And I certainly hope you'll watch that video at the 24-minute mark. It's really fascinating to hear Niven tell that story.
I imagine it would be. I'm not sure that you could call Pearl Harbor a false flag because the Japanese really did attack the U.S. ships. But it was obvious they were set up because Roosevelt spent the entire year before the attack goading them into it. He was following this 8-step plan of provocation prepared by Office of Naval Intelligence Lieutenant Commander Arthur H. McCollum, who was an expert on the Japanese culture. And they were doing these little things which to Americans would seem very trivial and very minor, but which were highly offensive to Japanese sensibilities. And following these 8 provocations, Japan attacked. And everybody knew that they were coming. This idea that they maintained radio silence is a complete lie. They were being monitored by radio intercept stations in Alaska, California, Australia. They were broadcasting so much that the Manson steamship, the SS Lurline, was picking it up. And their radio operator, Leslie Grogan, was able to plot the position of the incoming fleet. And the Lurline arrived in Pearl Harbor December 3rd, and Grogan turned his information over to the local ONI there. It promptly disappeared. And of course, all the modern ships, the carriers and the fast escorts, were out of Pearl Harbor, away off to the south, out of reach of the Japanese fleet. And what was left here in the harbor were basically junkers. They were all ships left over from World War I. They weren't really combat worthy. In fact, the sister ship of the Arizona, the Iowa, had already been taken off combat status and was being used as a gunnery training platform. And so it really was a setup from beginning to end. Yeah. The lie, of course, was that it was a complete and total surprise, and it wasn't. And by the way, of all the communications regarding Pearl Harbor, there was one communication from Winston Churchill to Franklin Delano Roosevelt on December 6th, 1941, that is still classified to this very day.
Yeah, well, I'm sure after hearing Niven talk about that, I get the impression that Churchill had at least the gist of it, and probably a lot more than that. I found that just absolutely fascinating, and Niven really is a fun guy to listen to as far as interviews. He's quite a guy for what it's worth. And the last thing to say, and I'll get off and let you get back on topic here, but I saw a video, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago, and Putin had said that the Rothschilds were not welcome. He said they're not welcome in Russia. And talk about, getting yourself in the same boat as Gaddafi and others. I don't think you can say anything more blatant or more offensive than that. And I would assume that things are not going to be good for Russia for quite some time. It's very, very sad to see what they're doing to the country, and I don't think that they deserve it.
No, they don't.
And it's also very sad to watch your podcast, and I see you very upset, and Dustin's calling in, and he's going out of his mind, and I don't blame him. And a lot of your callers are very upset about the potential for war, especially for nuclear war. These things are fun to watch. They're very informative, and the callers sometimes are very interesting. And everybody's upset, and I certainly don't blame people at all for being pretty nervous. So I wish you luck, and I certainly hope Trump will, not do anything crazy. That's all I can say.
Well, we'll see what's going to happen there, but it is a very, very tense situation. And even though Trump appears to be softening his rhetoric, all of a sudden we're hearing out of both France and Great Britain, yes, we're pretty sure that Assad did this, and the attack is on. So again, it's obviously a faction fight between those who want the war to move forward, risking war with Russia and China, and those who are saying this is really more than we should get into. Unfortunately, too many of the pro-war hawks, they're thinking that the war is going to go the way the sales brochures from the defense contractors say it will. But we know that that really is not what's going to happen. I want to share one little story with you, and this gets back to Pearl Harbor. You probably remember the broadcaster Edward R. Murrow, and he was famous for taking on Joseph McCarthy. And he actually went to the White House on December 7th, and he was actually there when Roosevelt was informed that Japan had struck Pearl Harbor. And Edward R. Murrow basically noted that Roosevelt almost seemed relieved that it had happened.
Yeah, I can believe that. I really can. And the only other story I have about Pearl Harbor, my father was in World War II, and they had a squadron reunion out there in Hawaii.
Yes.
And they went to the Arizona Memorial, and they were all told to please be quiet when you go inside the memorial, because there are still people visiting who are grieving for their loved ones. And I thought that was, very moving, very emotional, but they were asking for, everybody to be quiet. Is that still true today?
The funny thing is everybody just sort of automatically gets quiet when they walk into that end of the memorial, the wall full of names and everything. I don't recall anybody actually saying, please be quiet. But I think people just automatically are, because it is a memorial. And even knowing that the official story of Pearl Harbor is a lie, it's still a very powerful experience to actually go on out there and be in the Arizona Memorial, to look down in the water and see the lower half of the ship. Because, they cut the top off in order to make room for the memorial. And it's basically dumped over on this naval reservation on this peninsula between the West Lock and Center Lock. In fact, you can even see it on Google Earth, the remains of the top of the Arizona. But the public is not allowed to see it. If you are a survivor of the Arizona, they will escort you in and you can look at it. And I think there have been a couple of documentaries that have gone on in there and said that, they have kept the top of the Arizona. Unfortunately, it's too corroded to restore. Otherwise, I think it should be part of a museum, but that's just me.
Wow, no, that's fascinating. The last thing to say, if I can, regarding nuclear war and a few things, a number of years ago, I worked down in San Diego, and I went over to my client's house to drop off some paperwork for him. He was a nuclear power plant operator at San Onofre.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got to the door, he's on the phone with his father. And he's saying, I talked to Joe last night on the night shift. He said, last night, I just saved the whole world. My eyeballs got about as big as saucers. It was like, what in the world went
There's
on
a confidence builder.
Jeez. But I was smart enough to understand that these type of things, with nuclear power plant operators and what's going on in a plant are probably confidential, and he probably wouldn't have told me anyway about some valve sticking and plan B not going right, and they had to go to plan C. So I didn't say anything, but I was quite shocked to hear that. And people have to understand that we have 100 nuclear power plants or so in the United States, and if these things are, in meltdown mode or whatever, we are in big trouble. So
a lot of those reactors, those power stations in the United States, are unfortunately the exact same design that melted down at Fukushima. Do you remember the movie The China Syndrome? Jane Fonda, a very young Michael Douglas.
Oh, I really enjoyed that movie.
A lot of people really did. When it first was released, the studio and distributors didn't think it was going to go anywhere, and then 3 weeks after it was released, 3 Mile Island happened, and the movie just shot to the top of the charts.
No, it was a wonderful movie and really, really enlightening. And it's one of those movies you never forget. So I really, have good things to say about it. But anyway, Michael, thank you very much for taking my call. And again, if you got a chance to see that David Niven interview at the 24-minute mark, that was a really, really eye-opening thing for me for what it's worth. So take care and thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much here. We're going to let you go. We've got another caller waiting, but I don't have enough time before the commercial break. So we're going to take a moment here for some commercials, and we're going to come back to this caller. And then I got some bizarre news from the world of education and political correctness. You're not going to believe some of this stuff. We'll be right back after these few words.
Many people tell us about their experience with Extendivite. Just listen to what Glenn has to say.
Prior to taking it, I had diabetic neuropathy. The Extendivite reduced that significantly. Acid reflux was reduced. I had athlete's foot, very severe. Trimmed that down to about 75% dandruff, almost completely gone. I had occipital neuralgia at the base of my skull. I was having migraines, reduced by about 90%. Heart palpitations, my heart would kind of stall out. I would skip a beat. Very uncomfortable. And when walking from downstairs going to sleep, by the time I got to the bedroom, which is just one flight of stairs, my heart was pounding, coming out of my chest. My vision was blurry. This completely solved that problem. Great product. Thanks.
Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
For the past 14 years, it's been my privilege to host the National Intel Report on RBN, to offer a platform to interview exceptional guests, to provoke critical thought, and examine evidence, whether real, fake, or somewhere in between, and allow our audience to call in and participate with your input and questions in order to help us all reach an educated decision and arrive at our own truth. Our world has changed. It's now been turned on its head. Real is now considered fake, and mainstream fake is now pushed as real, rather than any clear thinking, consensus, or rationale.
Those few remaining beacons of light, the ones still shining through the mainstream media lies, propaganda, and deception, are being viciously attacked at every level through attempts at censorship, threatening advertisers, jailing hosts, and even killing journalists brave enough to speak the truth to you. We are in a war for our very freedom and existence, and through these despicable acts, freedom haters, collectivists, and communitarians have shown that they will stop at nothing to blot out these last few beacons of light. Truth is becoming increasingly more difficult to unmask, just as the term unmasking itself is spoken by those usually anonymous sources. They promote their lies, wishing to mask the truths by ignoring it, vilifying it, or conspiratorializing it into a black hole abyss.
Regrettably, RBN has reached the tipping point, and through internal audit and actuarial review, it has now been determined that the only life raft of survival to this network is to go the way of PBS, that being audience-supported. Like a cornered animal, the left with veracity is pulling out all the stops with every effort to effectively blacken our beacon forever. Help us, folks. Help yourselves. Don't let our light stop shining. Our motto has always been, because you can handle the truth. It's time to review your budget, folks. You want the truth to keep flowing through RBN. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and become a regular monthly donor of $30, $40, $50, or $100 or more a month, and ensure you keep the truth flowing.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Join Mike on the air. Call toll-free 800-313-9443. 800-313-9443.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're going to go right back to the phones. Mo in Florida, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Michael. Can you hear me all right?
I hear you just fine.
Michael, you're either the stupidest or the bravest person I've ever known. And I think you're the bravest person because you're the only one that calls out I'm not saying that, Israel, the Jews, we know what's really going on there with the Zionists. And in a couple of months, June 8th is going to be the anniversary of the USS Liberty attack.
Yes.
And I honestly cannot believe that these brave men of the USS Liberty, I live in South Florida, and I was driving down the highway, US 1 down here, and there was an old guy with the back of his car. He had a Hyundai car. In the back of it, he had, remember the USS Liberty. And I followed him into the parking lot, and I lost him. But I just, I wanted to go up and hug the guy because he was probably one of the survivors. And these guys, they're the epitome of what you are talking about. How come this obvious false flag, the attempted sinking of that surveillance ship, is not a national holiday? Not a holiday, but a remembrance, like a Veterans Day. This was a false flag with the attempted murder of that whole crew.
Yes.
And if they can get away with this, Michael, they can get away with anything. That's all I'm saying. You know what I mean?
Well, they got away with it in the sense that nobody was ever held to account, obviously, and a lot of the people involved in that are no longer with us anyway. But Israel did not get away with it in the sense that the truth did get out. And eventually the truth does come out. It would be a lot nicer if the truth would come out while the crimes are actually underway so that people can do something about it. But more and more people are finally starting to accept that, yes, this was a terrible thing for Israel to do to the USS Liberty. And what was even worse was the betrayal by President Johnson and SecDef McNamara in withholding any kind of aid and wanting Israel to sink that ship and kill everybody rather than embarrass the government of Israel. I think it was Israel's attempt to basically drag the U.S. into the war against Egypt because when the attack on the Liberty began, Israel contacted the U.S. government and said, we have got reports that Egypt is attacking your ship. And there was actually a strike in the air on the way to Cairo when one of these very brave sailors on the Liberty braved the Israeli cannon shells, went outside and hooked up an improvised antenna. And they got a radio message out saying, we're under attack by Israeli air and sea forces. And at that point, the strike for Cairo was recalled, and everybody went into cover-up mode. But a lot of people are still paying attention to it. There's supposed to be this feature film that is being independently produced about the story. And somebody today sent me some photos of a plaque from the little Naval Museum at Norfolk, Virginia, where they have another one of the Iowa-class battleships tied up there. And there's a little plaque to the Liberty right there on display. And it says, this ship was attacked by Israel.
Well, Michael, you're one of the few people that have the guts to stand up to this. And these people, these sailors were real heroes. You cannot, I'm getting tears in my eyes. These people were brave, and they should be recognized. Why doesn't, I understand where Trump's at. He has to go along with Israel, because if not, they'll probably kill him. But this is obvious to anybody that does any type of research whatsoever. These are the same people that bought down the Trade Center. Everybody that has a half or two brain cells to rub together knows this, right?
Israel may have been, if there really was a gas attack in Duma, it might have been Israel, because Israel doesn't want the U.S. pulling out of Syria, because then Syria is going to try and take back the Golan.
Michael, it shouldn't be called Israel, because it should be called, is this real? Because it's really, it's out there for anybody that wants to research it and do their homework. Yes, you're right, Michael, you're right. We are the fodder for Israel's greater area that they want to conquer.
Yes.
And, you know, we're the Goyim. We're the little people that die for Israel. And that's a fact. And you're one of the few people that calls them out. Like I said, when we started this conversation, you're either stupid or you're the bravest man I've ever known. And I think
The
bravest
two are
man
not
I've ever
mutually
known.
exclusive.
Well, you know, Ron Paul never really calls out Israel directly. And Ron Paul's my hero. I campaigned for him twice. But you call it out directly, bro. And I love you for that, man. And now I'll let you go.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We got to take another break for commercials, and we will be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
Do you worry a lot? Whether you're a college student, busy professional, parent, or grandparent, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in 1 to 2 weeks. Call 1-800-758-8746 or calmandclever.com. Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read a few from Amazon.com. Dr. Sam Serino reviewed the Extendivite product. Good ingredients, feeling much better since taking product. It seems that the tablets work well. Once again, thank you for your product. My acid reflux has really improved thanks to the Extendivite. Together with my thumb joints, the pain is gone and I'm able to grip things much better. My friend has peripheral arterial disorder and their lower legs were hurting in a red color, but thankfully there has been a significant improvement. Kind regards, Janice. My husband feels a big difference using Extendivite. Thank you. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
What this country is coming to, I sure would like to know. If they don't do something by and by, the rich will live and the poor will die. Doggone, I mean the panic is on. Can't get no way, can't draw no pay.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here, and we're going to get into political correctness and education. This story, is really out there. This is being reported on Breitbart. And apparently, the University of Tennessee at Knoxville is now hosting an anal sex workshop during Sex Week. And other workshops are just as bizarre. Events include Your Penis and You, Sucking D and Licking P, CSI My Period, and Masturbation Nation. Exactly what jobs are these students being trained for? You have to wonder. I mean, here in Hawaii over at the Kapi'olani Community College, because we are a tourist industry, they're teaching the students how to cater to that. They have a very fine cooking school for top-end chefs. They even operate a restaurant on the campus that you can go to for a very inexpensive but a very well-prepared dinner. And they do some wonderful stuff. I've been there for a couple of social events. So at the University of Tennessee, they're having all of these workshops about sex, and it kind of makes you wonder, what are the job opportunities in Tennessee that these kids are being prepared for? Now, even more bizarre, as you know, there's this so-called Women's March. It's a bunch of feminists, and that's all well and good. The early days of the feminist movement, I supported them. Equal pay for equal work, equal access to education, equal access to credit, things that made sense. And then in the 90s, it got really kind of radical and male bashing, and it seems to be getting even worse. But now it's getting just a little bit out there where apparently the Department of Justice shut down this website that was popular with sex workers, and basically, let's see, let me get the name of the website here, Backpage.com. And Backpage.com was shut down because it was allegedly used to facilitate both adult and child prostitution. And obviously, child prostitution is something that should not be allowed to happen. What was really interesting is the Women's March official Twitter feed called the shutdown of the website an absolute crisis for sex workers. Now, the so-called feminists that are running the Women's March are turning a blind eye to crimes committed against women and children. And it kind of makes you wonder just what these women in the Women's March, what they themselves are doing for a living, which may explain why they seem to have so much free time on their hands to go on out and march around. But the optics on that are really, really bad. It's a disaster for sex workers. Oh, well, we know who your constituency is, don't we? Here's where the transgenderism gets a little bit bizarre. And apparently, over in Glasgow, they were going to have a pride parade, a gay pride parade. And they were out there getting ready to have this, and all of a sudden, the organizers of the parade bans drag queens because the transgenders might be offended. They're starting to eat their own, is basically what's going on here. And they organized this parade, and they're trying to be PC. And, of course, in previous parades, the drag queens were kind of a feature. People went to see them. And now they're being banned because the transgenders might feel bad. You know, nobody gets through life without feeling bad. That's just a normal part of life, and you might as well get used to it. I know the liberals are trying to promise everybody that if we vote liberal and we follow the liberal agenda, that we will be happy every day of our lives and we'll never feel upset, we'll never feel sad, we'll never feel like we're microaggressed. That's not reality. It's a pleasant fantasy, but it's not reality. Let's take a phone call from Jeff in Georgia. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Michael, aloha. You got the greatest show going.
Thank you.
I appreciate the opportunity to call in. Somebody just called in about the USS Liberty, and I want to get your take on this. I probably brought it up before, but Lyndon Johnson, my estimation, was the worst president in my lifetime. Kennedy was the best, but Johnson, in my estimation, I want to get your take on this, committed treason 3 times. At a minimum, he covered up the assassination of JFK. At a minimum, he may have had foreknowledge. But secondly, he covered up Israel stealing nuclear material from NUMEC. He covered this up. It was told to him, the guy that told it to him. And thirdly, the USS Liberty. These are treasonous acts. Okay, but Johnson went even further than that. You know, and Kennedy may have signed the 65 immigration bill, but that was a farce. Okay, but Johnson went further than that. His Great Society was a type of reverse slavery. I am all for the African American being a first-class citizen, and he was not in 1965 when Johnson signed all this into law. But when you create a welfare system that takes from working people and gives to non-working people, to me that's like a reverse slave system. Johnson was pushed on Kennedy. You know this. You know,
Yes.
Kennedy had problems with women in bed, and I like John Kennedy, but he had that problem. And
Well, so did
apparently
Johnson.
Hoover-
So did Johnson. Let's be honest. He would sneak out of the White House through one of the underground tunnels all the time. Of course, Kennedy, had he not been assassinated, was planning on ditching Johnson as vice president in his second term. But I do want to rewind a little bit because there's one area where we do need to give Johnson his due. And I agree. I think he was a terrible president. He got us cranked up into Vietnam. He lied to us about the Gulf of Tonkin. And I don't like him. I don't like him at all. But he did one thing that we have to acknowledge because it was the right thing to do. And that goes back to the Kennedy assassination. Because Johnson's involvement in the cover-up came after the fact. Because the people who set up the assassination of John F. Kennedy laid an evidence trail to point to Fidel Castro in Cuba. That's why you had all those people claiming to be Oswald going to the Cuban embassy in Mexico. That's why they planted that Mannlicher Carcano on Oswald, the world's worst shoulder weapon, because that was the same gun Castro was importing by the shipload to give to the Cuban people following the Bay of Pigs invasion. Okay, and Johnson knew about the deal between Khrushchev and Kennedy that ended the Cuban Missile Crisis, where if the U.S. ever went into Cuba again, the nuclear war would be launched automatically. There would be no discussion about it whatsoever. And so Johnson knew that he had to basically break that evidence chain going to Cuba and basically make Oswald the crazed lone nut assassin who had no other partners in the assassination. And that's what Johnson did. And by doing so, he avoided a nuclear war. And we do have to give him credit for having done that.
Yes, and Johnson, Roger Stone wrote a book and said Johnson had murdered 8 times using his hitman before he ever came in the White House. Now, I would debate that whether it was 8 times, but if it was 1 time, Johnson had a very terrible past, and he was absolutely bribed by his Jewish puppet master. There's no other way I could put it. As a side note,
I prefer that
Johnson
you say Israeli puppet masters. The problem is when you say Jewish this and Jewish that, not all Jewish people are bankers. In fact, the vast majority of Jewish people are not bankers. Let's narrow our focus a little bit. That's just fair and accurate, okay?
Yes, he put Abe Forbes on the Supreme Court, and Forbes had to resign in 1968 or 69 because he was taking money from a guy named Lewis Wolfson. Now, Lewis Wolfson was a multimillionaire in South Florida. Lewis Wolfson, if you watch the Larry King 10-minute video where Jim Garrison goes down in 1967 and meets Lou Wolfson, Wolfson says, I'm going to give you $25,000 for your investigation of Clay Shaw and all that. Lou Wolfson is a sometimes businessman with Meyer Lansky.
Yes.
And Lou Wolfson was paying money to Abe Fortas. And I tell you, Michael, there's something to all of that. There's something to all of that. There's a connection. It's it's banking, it's corporation, it's power.
Well, it definitely is. But
Johnson,
the one area in which Jim Garrison's investigation failed was that he focused totally on the idea that Lee Oswald was the assassin, and he wasn't looking at the other involved parties, which would have included the Texas oil billionaires, the CIA, organized crime, including Mayor Lansky himself, Israel, because Kennedy didn't want them to have nuclear weapons, and of course the Federal Reserve itself.
Yeah, and I'll write this up and send it to you sometime. Jim Garrison was bribed or co-opted. It wasn't just Lou Wolfson paying him off. Jim Garrison was taking kickbacks from pinball machines. That's why he never went after the mafia in South Louisiana. And in the early 70s, he was indicted for that in 1971. And if you look at that,
yeah, but he was acquitted. He was acquitted.
He was acquitted.
Okay.
He was acquitted, but the guy
okay,
that
Jeff,
actually brought
Jeff,
the charges.
Jeff,
Yes.
Jeff, you're kind of wandering all over the place here. You don't seem to be coming to any kind of a point, and we're running out of time. So I'm going to let you go, and we're going to go to Bruce in Texas. Aloha, Bruce. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, did you say Bruce?
I said Bruce.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry about that. I'm trying to get some work done outside and talk to you at the same time.
Not a problem.
Okay. Alex Jones, I got mixed feelings for him, but, he's doing a bang-up job keeping the Syrian false flag out in front there.
Yes, he is.
And he's ruffling, a lot. Yeah. He is. I give him credit for that. It's just frustrating to no end that, he knows what happened on 9/11, and he knows, who's mainly responsible for the attack there, and there was one in Syria, and but he dance around that all day long and will never get close to it.
Yeah, I know. I hear that complaint all the time, and of course, the matter of Israel is why Alex and I aren't friends anymore, which is a shame because I liked talking with him, but that was the issue that basically ended our friendship, and I'm sorry that happened, but I refuse to back down from what I have concluded is true. Anything else, Bruce? I think we lost Bruce. All right, so phone lines are open. We're going to get on back here to the news. Now, not too long ago, there was this incident at a North Carolina school where they basically suspended a student for basically doodling on a page. And he drew a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle with a sword in each hand, which I forget which one of the four characters that is, but it's certainly something that you see on movies and TV and lunchboxes and all the rest of it. Apparently there was another stick figure aiming a hunting rifle, and apparently this boy and his father do hunt. There was a hopped up car, a magician, and a tower with a bow and arrow, and this kid was suspended for the doodles. Now the Rutherford Institute has intervened and sent in their attorneys saying that the punishment infringes on the student's First Amendment right of expression, it's excessive, and is contrary to district policies guaranteeing children a right to an education. Now, of course, we know that the attitude of school districts is the Bill of Rights does not apply while you're on our campus. I'd like to see somebody challenge that. But there's no question it's excessive. This kid was just doodling images that he saw in media and on TV and in real life. And kids like to doodle. It's an artistic form of expression. And there's no question, it's way over the top. It is excessive. Now, as you know, the gun grabbers are still out there trying to figure out some way they can divide and conquer Second Amendment supporters. And apparently, their latest idea is to invoke racism and basically say that the problem with guns are the white people. And there was this March for Our Lives rally. Some of the slogans in the rally were, "White men with guns are America's biggest terrorist," I wish Obama had taken your guns. NRA is a terrorist organization. And this is such over-the-top jingoism. That's why they're not getting any traction. And first of all, as the YouTube shooting indicated, it's not always white males. And if you look at inner-city crime, rather than the mass shootings, you will discover it's not a white problem either. It's pretty much balanced across all of the various ethnic groups. Now, the schools are moving to protect their students from those evil white men with guns. And you're going to really like this one. Over in Pennsylvania, they are arming their teachers with these 16-inch long baseball-style bats and telling the teachers, if there is a mass shooter, just go and club him with this. So it's a bat. This is going to get the teachers killed. This is utterly, utterly ridiculous. Remember when the Department of Homeland Security was actually instructed, this is not a joke, this is not The Onion, the Department of Homeland Security's recommended course of action if there was a mass shooter in your school is try and stab him with the scissors that are in the classroom. That is really not going to work. The only thing that stops a bad man with a gun is a good man with a gun, or woman. That's it. But the gun grabbers want all the guns, and the fact that the criminals will still have guns is irrelevant. They're not afraid of the criminals. They're afraid of the law-abiding American citizens getting fed up with what's going on in this country. We'll be back after these few commercials.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing for the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll-free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AROutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus magful clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AROutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
Do you or a loved one suffer migraine headaches? Listen to what scientist Kurt Hendricks has to say.
35 million people in the United States suffer with debilitating migraines. If you or a loved one are one of them, you need to know about MigRelief. Hi, I'm Kurt Hendricks, the scientist that formulated and patented the MigRelief migraine formula. MigRelief is a non-prescription dietary supplement recommended by neurologists, pharmacists, and pediatricians to address nutritional deficiencies in both adults and children over 2 with migraines. Try MigRelief for 3 months and see the powerful difference it can make in your life or get your money back, no questions asked. Go to MIG911.com or call 800-MIG-7354. You can change your life today.
So if you suffer from migraines, don't wait. Call 800-MIG-7354. That's 800-MIG-7354 or visit MIG911.com.
Some are maxed out all their credit cards. Some are working 2 jobs and living in cars. Minimum wage won't pay for a roof, won't pay for a drink. If you gotta have proof, just try it yourself, Mr. CEO. See how far $5.15 an hour will go. Take a part-time job at one of your stores. I bet you
And
can.
aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Last segment of our program today. Somebody just sent me this real funny picture. It's a sign that says, Google, now hiring. Don't bother filling out an application. We already have your information. That really is very clever. Now then, if you have cable TV and cable broadband internet, and if you look at your bill very closely, you'll see all these little surcharges that are on there and all these little fees that run the price up to a lot more than you were told you were going to be paying for your service. And one of those has to do with this program that was supposed to allow the funding of converting America's consumer internet totally to fiber optic. And since this program went into effect, the cable companies have collected $400 billion with a B dollars to upgrade their systems with fiber, and it hasn't happened. In most areas of the country, you're still on metal lines. And this goes back to 1992. Now, back in 1992, the speed of broadband was 45 megabits per second in both directions. Had this program gone forward with the conversion to fiber optics being paid by the cable customers, by 2014, all of us should be enjoying gigabit speeds, 1,000 megabits per second into our home, which is, by the way, the standard in Japan. But we keep falling behind in terms of the speed and quality of our internet capability. Right now, America is 25th in the world in download speeds and 40th in upload speeds. We're never in the top 20. We have that problem here with Spectrum. We're paying for 300 megabits per second, and we're lucky if we're getting 60. We don't dare downgrade the plan. If we pay for 60, we might only be getting 20. But it's another example of how corporations continue to charge more money and produce lower quality service and products because they're monopolies. When cable TV first came on out and they decided they were going to go the franchise route, carve up the area into these franchises and let only one cable TV company sell in that area, we knew that it was going to be high price and low quality because there's no competition. Without competition, corporations can do whatever they want. Now, right now, snowstorm Xanto is bringing heavy snow and blizzard conditions to the northern plains and the Great Lakes. It's going to be heavy snow, parts of the Rockies, the northern plains. It's going to be lasting into the weekend. Apparently, it has brought field work to a halt in Wisconsin. This is supposed to be the spring planting season, and they're still dealing with the snow. More snow has hit western Massachusetts, and apparently, according to this other story, this snowstorm, Xanto, is destroying crops. Gosh darn that, human-caused global warming. There's the music. Time for me to get on out of here. Please stay tuned for John Stadmiller. I'm sure he's got a lot of interesting things to share with you. Please take what you learn here and share it with everybody. Talk to them in person or send them a paper letter. Don't go on social media. It is heavily, heavily filtered, and it's getting worse right now. Facebook and Twitter and YouTube are useless for anything except funny cat videos, so don't even bother with them anymore. Please keep RBN alive. Tell 5. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.
yeah.